What if the entire reason your ads fail has nothing to do with your product, your price, or your targeting, and everything to do with a single idea invented in 1907 by a man you've probably never heard of? That man turned a nobody tooth powder called Pepsodent into one of the most famous brands in America, and he did it by inventing the entire discipline of scientific advertising. Stay with me, because the rule he wrote down over 100 years ago still controls whether your copy converts or collects digital dust, and almost nobody applies it correctly today. Before Claude Hopkins, advertising was basically a carnival barker contest. Companies placed huge, full-page ads in newspapers packed with wild claims, no proof, no data, and absolutely no idea which ad actually produced a single sale. Copywriters wrote from gut, from ego, from opinion. The boss liked the headline, so it ran. The boss liked the layout, so it stayed. Nobody tracked anything. Nobody tested anything. Ads were expensive, vague, and almost impossible to measure. Hopkins walked into this world and called it what it was: gambling dressed up in print. Then he built a completely new system from the ground up. So who was Claude Hopkins? He was a copywriter working at the Lord and Thomas Agency in Chicago during the early 1900s. He had already written millions of dollars in tracked direct response mail before Pepsodent ever called. That background mattered because it gave him something rare at the time: the habit of measuring every claim against actual customer response. When he later wrote his book, Scientific Advertising, he wasn't theorizing. He was documenting a method he had already battle-tested on real products, real coupons, and real money. In 1907, the Pepsodent company handed Hopkins a tooth powder that was, frankly, nothing special. It was a mildly minty powder in a plain box, and it competed against dozens of similar products already on pharmacy shelves. The company had no real differentiator, no celebrity endorsement, no technological breakthrough, no patented formula worth bragging about. Most agencies would have run a generic ad and prayed. Hopkins did something completely different. He refused to write a single word of copy until he understood one thing: why would a real human being actually buy this product over every other option sitting right next to it on the shelf? Here's the insight that made Hopkins a legend. He realized that nobody, and I mean nobody, buys toothpaste because they want clean teeth. Clean teeth are a maintenance task, like changing your oil or vacuuming the rug. People don't wake up excited about dental hygiene. What they do care about deeply is the social anxiety of walking into a room with food on their teeth, with bad breath, with a dull film on their smile. Hopkins understood that Pepsodent was not selling dental health. It was selling social confidence. It was selling the feeling of walking into a conversation knowing your teeth look clean, fresh, and presentable. Hopkins then turned that insight into a specific, visceral ad claim. He pointed out that everyone has a thin, sticky film on their teeth called the mucin plaque, and he promised that Pepsodent would remove it, leaving your teeth feeling so slick and clean that your tongue would notice immediately. That tingling, fresh sensation became the entire ad campaign. He didn't lecture about cavities. He didn't lecture about dentists. He sold a feeling you could literally feel in your mouth within seconds of brushing. Suddenly, brushing wasn't a chore. It was a small daily ritual of social armor. Sales exploded almost overnight. Now here's the part most people miss. While writing the Pepsodent ads, Hopkins also invented a tool we still use today without even thinking about it: the coupon. He created a small, redeemable slip that buyers could mail in or take to a store, and every single coupon was traced back to a specific publication, a specific ad, and a specific day. For the first time in history, an advertiser could look at a number and know exactly which ad produced exactly how many sales. No guessing, no opinion, just data. That single invention is the ancestor of every promo code, every UTM link, and every conversion tracking pixel we use in 2026. Once Hopkins had coupons, he could finally run what he called scientific tests. He would pick one small city, run ad version A in the local paper, count the coupons. Then he would run ad version B in a different small city with a different headline or offer, count those coupons too. Whichever ad produced more sales, he scaled nationally. The losing ad got killed, no matter how much the agency or the client liked it personally. This was heresy at the time. Today we call it A/B testing, and it's standard practice. Hopkins wasn't just running ads. He was running experiments, and the ads were the variables. The discipline of tracking changed everything for Hopkins. He discovered things that contradicted conventional advertising wisdom of his era. Long copy outsold short copy in most cases. Specific offers outsold vague emotional appeals. Direct, plain language beat flowery, fancy prose every single time. None of these conclusions came from theory. They came from counting actual coupons and matching them to actual sales. Hopkins wasn't trying to win advertising awards. He was trying to win customers, and the only proof that mattered was the receipt. That receipt-based mindset is the foundation of every direct response marketer who ever lived, including the ones making millions online right now. Once Hopkins found a winning ad, he didn't tweak it to death. He scaled it. He rolled the same proven headline, the same proven offer, and the same proven body copy into newspapers in city after city, knowing it had already converted in a controlled test. This is exactly the opposite of what most modern advertisers do. who keep reinventing creative every week without ever giving a single winner enough runway to compound. Hopkins taught the industry that a tested, proven ad is not boring. A tested, proven ad is a goldmine, and you should mine it until it stops paying you. Of everything Hopkins ever wrote, one rule stands above the rest. He said, and I am quoting him directly, "Every advertisement is a direct, personal, immediate communication from the seller to the individual consumer." Read that again slowly, not to a crowd, not to a demographic, not to a target audience, to one individual human being reading the ad at one specific moment in their life. Hopkins insisted that you write as if you are sitting across a kitchen table from that one person, speaking to them, addressing their exact problem, using their exact language. The moment copy becomes corporate, generic, or polished, it stops being a conversation. It becomes a lecture, and lectures don't sell. Hopkins translated that rule into a very practical habit. He wrote every ad the way you would write a personal letter to a friend. He used the word "you" constantly. He used plain conversational words. He avoided industry jargon, marketing speak, and any sentence that sounded like it came from a brand instead of a person. He would even read his copy out loud to make sure it sounded like talking, not like writing. If a sentence felt stiff, he cut it. If a phrase felt like it was trying too hard to impress, he cut it. The goal was intimacy, not cleverness, and intimacy is what moves buyers. Hopkins was also blunt about one uncomfortable truth that still upsets people today. When data and personal opinion collide, opinion must lose. He saw countless campaigns killed because the client didn't like the ad, even though the test numbers were phenomenal. He saw winning ads rejected because the boss's wife thought the headline was silly. Hopkins called that attitude poison. He insisted that sales data, not taste, not ego, not hierarchy, was the only honest judge of an ad's worth. That principle feels radical even now, because most marketing decisions are still made in conference rooms by people protecting their own opinions. So let's look at the before and after picture. Before Hopkins, advertising was an opinion contest funded by budgets that no one could track. After Hopkins, advertising became a measurable, repeatable, optimizable system where every dollar could be traced to a result. The shift he created didn't just help Pepsodent. It gave rise to the entire modern direct response industry, the foundation of today's performance marketing, conversion optimization, and paid traffic science. When you split test a Facebook ad in 2026, you are using a method Claude Hopkins invented to sell a minty tooth powder in 1907. The lineage is direct and unbroken. Hopkins' influence spreads further than most people realize. David Ogilvy, often called the father of modern advertising, openly credited Hopkins as his single biggest inspiration. Ogilvy famously kept a copy of scientific advertising on his desk and gave a copy to every new copywriter he hired. Gary Halbert, one of the greatest direct response copywriters of the 20th century, also traced his entire system back to Hopkins' rules. The whole chain of direct response copywriting, from Hopkins to Ogilvy to Halbert to today's top internet marketers, runs through that same 1907 Pepsodent insight. Sell the human feeling, track the response, scale what works. Let's translate Hopkins' rules into a modern workflow. Step 1, identify the underlying emotional reason someone buys your product, not the logical reason, the emotional one. Step 2, write every word of your landing page, email, or ad as if you are speaking to one specific person using you and plain language. Step 3, build a tracking mechanism before you spend a single dollar, whether that's a coupon code, a UTM link, or a conversion pixel. Step 4, run a small controlled test of 2 or more versions. Step 5, let the data, not your taste, decide the winner. That entire workflow end to end is the Hopkins method repackaged for 2026. Now, here are the mistakes Hopkins would absolutely roast you for making today. Mistake number 1, writing copy that sounds like a brand instead of a person. Mistake number 2, changing winning ads before they have enough data to be statistically significant. Mistake number 3, trusting a designer, a CEO, or a stakeholder's opinion over actual conversion numbers. Mistake number 4, selling features instead of the underlying human feeling the product delivers. And mistake number 5, scaling an ad that has never been tested just because you have a good feeling about it. Hopkins would have called that, and I quote, gambling in a tuxedo. If you take only one thing from Claude Hopkins' entire career, take this. The right offer, presented to the right person in the right words, will reliably sell almost anything, but only if you actually measure the response and let the numbers guide the next move. That is the entire secret of scientific advertising, and it has not changed in over 100 years. Your job is not to be clever. Your job is not to be artistic. Your job is to start a one-to-one conversation with a real human, offer them something they actually want, and then pay close attention to whether they say yes.